We're good.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the school board meeting for Monday, February 12th, 2024. And as a quick reminder, the vision of our district is that we believe in opportunities, achievement, and community for all. And the mission to support that is that the school district of Milton, in partnership with the community, prepare our students for achievement and lifetime readiness by providing opportunities for all. And on that note, we will call to order this meeting of the Board of Education and invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty.
As most of you are aware, we had a bit of a challenge with our board docs tonight, so we all have printed agendas. So do you know of any changes we need to make, Rich?
No changes to the agenda?
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Jen's motion is seconded by Dave to approve our agenda as it is. Questions? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All righty. Minutes from the previous meeting. We do not have printed copies of those. They are in board docs. Does anyone know of any issues or questions that they may have had?
I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second?
Dave's motion is seconded by Jennifer to approve the minutes as they appear in board docs, or will eventually. Questions on the previous meeting minutes? Hearing none, I would attend, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right, I do have a little challenge in that we are going to approve vouchers, but typically we would like to see those.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, oh, perfect. Somebody could offer a motion, that's the sum total, and obviously the itemized detail would be a board docs like it always is.
We want Carly to page through the pages of the document.
I reviewed them, so as long as that's the sum, I would motion to approve the vouchers for $665,785 as presented.
Second?
Thank you. Dave's motion seconded by Jennifer to approve our general checking fund vouchers in the amount he enumerated. Questions on those? All in favor of approval, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Vouchers are good. I picked up the sheet at 6:30. I had nobody signed up for public comment, and I don't see anyone in the audience that's itching to speak, so we're rolling past that. Superintendent update, Rich.
A couple things that I want to highlight. Today is the first day of Wisconsin School Bus Driver Appreciation Week, and next week marks Wisconsin Adult School Crossing Guard Appreciation Week. And both our bus drivers and our crossing guards play a key role on our team in making sure that our students get to school and get home safely. So we invite our community members to join us in thanking these essential members of our team over the upcoming weeks. Our middle school unity team and several other clubs across the district are seeking pledges for the upcoming Special Olympics polar plunge that's taking place this Saturday. The middle school has a $6,000 fundraising goal. If folks would like to make a pledge or for more information, please connect with staff at the middle school. We'll be happy to assist. We have 37 FBLA Redhawks that competed at the Region 5 Leadership Conference back on February 3rd. All of our students did an outstanding job, but we want to extend special congratulations to those that received first place in their categories. In personal finance, Sage Brady finished first. In website coding and development, Nolan Erickson and Cooper Bach both finished first. And in management information systems, Megan Gasser and Anya Shinkei finished first place. So congratulations to those individuals and to all 37 of our FBLA members. We also want to congratulate our HOSA, which is our future healthcare professionals. We have students that had qualified for the state competition there. Juniors Ella Beckler and Madison Bussinger qualified in CPR and first aid, and Tegan Perkins Walker qualified in medical terminology for the state competition. And then a special recognition to Milton High School senior Caleb Billhorn. Earlier this month, we were made aware that Caleb is a National Merit Scholarship finalist. Caleb qualified for this honor by taking the 2022 PSAT as a junior, submitted with an application to the National Merit Scholarship Program, demonstrating his leadership abilities, honors, and any other outstanding qualities for consideration by the committee. And that committee selects finalists based on their skills, accomplishments, and potential for success in rigorous college studies. So congratulations to Caleb and to any of his family members who might be in our audience today. In sports and activities, our Red Hawk bands are hosting Jazz and Swing Night on Friday at Milton High School. Our Red Hawk Jazz Ensemble provides both great music, swing dancing, and from some very talented musicians. Proceeds will benefit the Red Hawk bands towards their upcoming jazz ensemble competition trip. And Milton High School is hosting sectional wrestling tournament this Saturday. We invite community members to come and cheer on the Red Hawk wrestling team. And on February 20th, we're hosting first round of the girls basketball regions against Monroe. So our winter athletics are coming to an end here soon.
What time is the wrestling meet?
Jeremy, do you know what time wrestling starts?
I do not know the exact time. Generally, weigh-ins are at 8 o'clock, but then the wrestling starts at some point after that.
I'm able to get back in.
I'm not quite there yet. All right, any other questions for Rich? All righty, thank you, Rich. All right, 3 is an HR committee report. Astute observers realize we are short a couple folks. Rick usually chairs that, but Jen is a bit of a co-chair of sorts, so we're gonna have her give us an update on what the HR folks have been up to.
Yeah, so our first agenda item was the anticipated timeline for the 24-25 compensation. And Chris provided a timeline to share. I don't know if
It is available on the
Yeah.
screen.
All right.
Yeah,
sounds good. So, board members obviously have looked at that, and that really outlines important employee contractual dates and deadlines that need to be adhered to. Any questions about the timeline? All right. Next, we talked about the 23-24 substitute teacher and aide overview. We were kind of educated on the overall fill rate regarding our permanent substitute data. We reviewed that. For those listening, the permanent substitute teachers, there are 5 total currently in the district, 1 each at the high school, middle school, north side intermediate, east and west elementary. And then we have 2 permanent substitute aides. And so we kind of dove into a little bit about what that data looked like. And we utilized these permanent substitute teachers and aides since 2021 school year. And they are employed by Teachers on Call, not employed by the district. So the district does not incur benefit cost, obviously, to employ those folks. Any questions about the substitute teacher and aide overview?
What do we do when there's an unfilled absence? How do we rectify that for whatever given day it happens on?
So after the permanent substitute teachers are placed at different locations. So we could be utilizing, if there's one school that is in need of more substitutes than others, we shift those early in the morning, the day of those absences. And then after, if we still have open positions, we have interfaculty coverage, and that's easier at the secondary level. Or we have our psychologists, counselors, building, or our school administrators help out cover those classrooms.
Okay. One other question I had, and I can't access the slideshow.
We have it on the screen. And
There's a slide regarding us versus other districts.
Correct.
It appears, at least from my notes, that we seem to have better results in filling. Is it, we have different criteria for subs, or is it we're better at recruiting than other districts who need subs?
Let's speak to that first, and then Chris can kind of fill in some of the details, because there's a couple of different pieces to that. Carly has go back this one. First, our substitute teacher fill rate. You can see that in comparison to previous years, we're doing very well, especially during the month of December, but we've been overall very high, both for teachers and for aides. So most of the time, we are able to fill positions. And then Dave, you were referring to that next slide, which is the comparison between School District of Milton, which is the far left bar in each of those bar graphs. And then the next 4 bars are area districts that Teachers on Call works with. Teachers on Call doesn't give us the names of those districts, but they are area districts, 4 area districts that they work with. So if we compare the teacher data, our fill rate between September and December was 96%, where the other 4 districts range from 83 to 93. And our fill rate for the aides is really striking compared to the other districts. Ours is at 83%, where other districts are between 53 and 59%. And just at a really high level, and Chris can fill in more of the details, there's a lot that goes into having subs take jobs in your district. Part of it is pay, but part of it is also working conditions, connections that they made with other staff members. I know that some districts, when they have aide positions that aren't filled or that need a sub, they don't always look to fill them. They just leave it open for the day, which creates more of a burden on everybody else. And ours is more around, that person's job is important, what they do, and if they can't be there, we want to get somebody in to do that job if possible. And then Chris, do you want to speak a little bit to the pay difference or anything else on that topic?
Absolutely. So Rich is absolutely correct with that being a major component. It's how those other districts utilize their subs. If they don't utilize a permanent substitute teacher or a permanent special education aide like we do, that it'll go unfilled, and then that's the data that's reported to Teachers on Call. And that's why you can see the differences between Milton and those other districts. We go that extra step to make sure that we get those positions filled if possible. So when it comes to the compensation, Carly, if you can switch to the next slide, you will see that the school district in Milton, what we pay for our substitutes, and then where those 4 nearby districts using Teachers on Call, that's the average that they pay. So you'll see where we land compared to those other 4 districts on the average, but you'll also see Jody Wilder, our substitute coordinator, and I added the Janesville School District because that's our biggest competitor, and they do not utilize TOC. They have their own in-house substitutes, and that's what they pay for them.
Thank you.
We've raised our rates for our subs over the last couple of years to make sure that we can compete. But as Chris shared, a big part of why we're able to have such high fill rates is our permanent sub positions that we have. And those come at a financial cost to the district, but we feel that they are worthwhile positions because it allows us to have a much higher likelihood that when someone is out, we'll be able to have a quality staff member fill their spot.
How often do you renew the is it annually with Teachers on Call? Is it the annual?
It is an annual contract, but I think it was 2 years ago, they gave us a 2-year price deal.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different contracts or renewal rates that they provide to us, but typically it's an annual contract.
Mm-hmm. And is there any risk of, so I know on the Illinois side, there was some legislation that went through.
Right.
We're seeing it in our industry. Is there anything on the horizon on the Wisconsin side in the same similar?
I have not heard of any legislature that would be similar.
Can you
to
share
the one.
more, Tracy, about so that everybody knows?
Sorry, yeah, so there were laws that went through related to time off, and that the temp agencies have to now compensate for sick days and time off time, and so all they're doing is passing it through to the employers that utilize their services. So again, if there's any whispers, and I didn't know on the Wisconsin side of that, then obviously rates would go up. Not the rates necessarily, there's a difference between the rate you're paying your employee and the rate you're paying your temp agency. So it's that gap that they look at. So apologies for not expanding, but I was just curious.
And I have not heard of anything like that,
Okay.
but it doesn't mean that those conversations aren't happening. They just haven't gotten to the school district HR folks yet.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
All right, any other questions on that topic? All right, moving on, we talked about the flexible benefits, the HRA and the HSA, and then the COBRA benefit review. We did look at participation history, and I don't know if that's in our packet.
Yes, it is.
Okay, sounds good.
And it's
So,
on the screen.
okay, perfect. So we did review that, and again, looked at the time frame that you can see there. And so I'm going to let Chris talk a little bit more about the kind of the details of this conversation.
Of course. So we were looking at how many staff members are enrolled in the HSA and the HRA. And then looking back to when the district implemented the health savings account. And you'll see that in our first year, we had 42 individuals enrolled in the health savings account. And then it has increased approximately about 12% from year 1 to year 2, and then a little less than that for year 3, and currently where we are in 23-24 year. So you'll see those, the breakdown, you see the staff moving from the HRA into the HSA.
Chris, are the plans for retirees substantially the same as the plans for employees? It's just, I was just curious why the ratios between plans and employees aren't consistent with the ratios for the retirees on the plan, or is there something nuanced different in what a retiree would have versus in HSA versus HRA, or I'm just trying to get my arms around why the inconsistency?
So right now, all of our retirees are under the HRA. And if you recall back a year ago, the Board of Education and the HR committee reviewed the district's retirement benefits. So those changes that were made last spring and late winter, that is pretty much different than what our active staff have.
Oh, got it.
So there's a tiered benefit system that we had in place, and that continues on, and we're living our first year with that tiered system.
Okay, I didn't make that connection until just now. Thank you for clarifying that. That totally makes sense.
What kind of feedback are you getting? Are you getting now that a year's gone by with the transition?
The retirement,
No, on the active side.
on the active health insurance, we are still receiving conversation or questions on HRA and HSA. So that has been consistent over our last 3 years. Staff are constantly wondering which is going to be a better plan for them. And we give them the facts on both plans and then leave that decision up to them. We will have our open enrollment period coming up in May for a July 1st effective date.
One of the things that we heard from USI, who's the vendor that we work with on our benefits studies, from their work in other districts, is that districts that had offered an HSA option typically would see what we're seeing, that it'd be a lower at first, and then every year, other districts have seen more people move to that option. And we are definitely, as you can see from the data, we're definitely seeing that.
We are also experiencing new staff coming in that may have had an HSA with their previous employer, and that's what's familiar with them, and that's what they're electing now too.
And word of mouth sometimes too. Again, and changes, it's tough, so.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anything else?
The one other item from that agenda item, Carla, if you can go to there's a second page to that one. Chris, do you want to talk through the participation in the flex?
Sure, absolutely. So this attachment in board docs represents our enrollment in the flex, whether it's flex dependent and flex medical. And you'll see our flex dependent is shown from the 2019-2020 year, and that is through this year. And then you'll see that the district brought back its flex medical to begin with the 22-23. So this year was our first year with our flex medical. And you'll see the enrollment with both of those benefits, and then the average amounts that those employees have elected.
So this is
People
a,
who might not be familiar with the flexible benefit, on the document there, on the dependent side, you can see that we have 5 employees that are taking part in it this year, and their average that they've claimed that they claimed for the year is $4,500. So on average, those 5 employees have set aside $4,500 pre-tax, and then they spend that $4,500 on dependent care, and then they spend it without being taxed on that money. The same concept for medical. There are 9 staff members who are using Flex Medical. On average, about $1,600 each that they again set aside pre-tax. They can spend it on eligible medical expenses without that money being taxed. Part of the reason that it's not as widespread, because it's a really small number of people that utilize it. There's 5 and 9, and one of those people uses it in both. So there's 13 staff members that utilize one or the other or both. If they set money aside from pre-tax and then they don't end up not using it, they lose that money. They can't carry it over to the next year. They can't get it back and have it taxed. Once they've determined at the start of the year what amount they're going to set aside, then they are stuck with that amount, and it's kind of a use it or lose it concept. One of the things that we'll be doing moving forward is having a conversation with our benefits advisory group about what their thoughts are on this benefit. It's not a high dollar cost to the district to run this. It's about a $3,000 cost, but there is time involved on the district's end. With only 13 employees, it's something that, depending on the feedback we get from the benefits advisory group, it might be something that we bring a recommendation to the board down the road to end. But we want to have that conversation with the BAG group and find out what their thoughts are on why it's not being utilized as much as it could be.
And I was thinking about that, especially dependent care. I know so many staff have young children. It's literally like a 25% discount on child care. The flex plan provider, how do they market it? Because it's such a significant savings. It seems crazy to me that only 5 people are taking advantage of it. So how is the word getting out there? Because I don't know why someone would wouldn't do this if we have child care expenses.
So that you can do it through your employer, or you can do it on your taxes at the end of the year. You cannot do both. So,
but you're not getting back your Social Security or Medicare tax if you do your taxes. So there's in any circumstance it would make sense to wait.
So there's certain staff members that the feedback I've heard is there's a lot of work that goes into it to submit their claims to Diversified Benefit Services. Our current plan does not have a card that we can utilize, whether it's on the medical or even on the dependent side of things. So there's no option with our current vendor to do that. So it is a cumbersome practice of making sure you're submitting receipts to be able to get that reimbursement back. And that could be part of it. With your
I'm sorry, go ahead.
With your question about how it's marketed,
Yeah.
we have that information on our website with the Diversified Benefit Services brochures and pamphlets that we have. We also market that for our staff coming out of HR, starting during our open enrollment period. We have an open enrollment period that starts in May, but instead of just a 2-week window like we do with our health insurance, it goes all the way through mid-August. And then that plan runs from September 1st to August 31st. So there's a number of months that the HR team constantly is sending out reminders and asking staff if they have any questions. We also put out communication within our newsletter too. That's 4 or 5 times a year.
Do we have the leverage to ask this provider or another provider to come in? And when health savings accounts first came out, it was much the same way. We had to go and ask for reimbursement, and then the industry decided, right, we put check cards in these people's pockets and make it easy.
Yep.
Can we go to bid or ask our vendor to say, you just need to provide this? Because if ease of use is the drawback. I mean, talking about, you know, people's take-home pay at the end of the day, this is such a huge difference that I would assume there'd be a vendor that would provide this if our vendor currently chooses not to.
So there are other vendors that do this, and we are currently exploring that.
Okay.
Dave, we had this conversation at the HR committee level as well, and I asked the same question again about how is it marketed? How are we getting it out to the employees, the idea that, you know, this is available? And then we did learn that, in the committee, we learned that there is no card. So, you know, we kind of encouraged Chris and his team to find out what else is out there.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are, as Chris said, we are looking into that. I don't think it's a case that people aren't aware of the benefit. I think that our HR team does a really nice job of promoting it and making people aware of it, both new hires and people who have been with the district. But if there are vendors that we can work with who would make that process easier for our staff, we definitely want to explore that.
Okay.
And is this only tied to the HRA?
I'm sorry.
Is this flex opportunity is only tied to the HRA?
Not with the dependent side.
Not the on the benefit side.
The medical, that is correct.
Yes.
If you elect the HSA, you cannot elect flex medical.
Because it's already built into.
Correct, and we've been working with our current vendor with that, because a few people, so we're working on that.
I think to Dave's point, and kind of tie Rich's comments together, I would recommend before we consider dropping it, we explore the ease of use option first, give that a run, because I scratch my head too on the dependent care, especially because those are known expenses. You're not guessing. I get the medical side where you kind of guess a little bit, but the dependent care is expensive to begin with for anybody, and it's a known bill. So if we could provide that savings to our staff, and if they don't want it, fine, that's great.
That's a key part of what we want to talk about with the benefits advisory group is both them personally and the people in their schools. Do they use it? And if not, why not?
And if it's a vendor issue, then let's give that a shot before we think about taking it away, would my opinion.
And other questions about the benefit review? All right, lastly, the thing on our agenda was the Benefits Advisory Group meeting review. They have met on December 13th and January 24th, and Chris is going to go through the PowerPoint that was in board docs with us.
Okay, you'll see in board docs and up on the screen that this is just a high-level overview of both of those meetings. So you'll see these are the items under the December 13th meeting that we reviewed. We had the medical loss or medical insurance review, medical loss ratio, the 23-24 budget data, annual premium change. And then on January 24th, Benefits Advisory Group meeting, we reviewed the district's benefit cost, dental, life, and long-term disability insurance review, and then review of the benefit cost over time with potential 24-25 outcomes. And then the last bullet point was the 24-25 9.9% capped health insurance and employee wellness prevented visits. Really, if you can go to the next slide, please. Well, on this slide, this shows our 23-24 budgeting operating revenues for Fund 10 and Fund 27, and then our 23-24 budgeted operating expenses. Rich, do you want to go into detail on this?
I think a big thing that we hit on with the Benefits Advisory Group is on the right side of the two pie graphs, the right side with our expenses, the orange benefits piece of the pie is a very significant piece of our expenses. 22% of our overall costs as a district are on benefits for our employees. And that's about $11.2 million altogether. That includes medical insurance, dental insurance, retirement benefits, anything that falls under that retirement umbrella. The largest portion of that is medical insurance costs or benefits. And as those rates continue to rise, if that piece of the pie grows, it limits our ability to have funds available for other pieces of the pie. You can see benefits and wages for our employees together make up 69% of our total. But when we add in the purchase services that are part of employee costs, because like our school nurses, substitutes fall under purchase services, Our contract with Go Right Way, so our bus drivers are technically purchased services. Overall, salaries and benefits for employees make up about 75% of our overall costs. Everything else, utilities, you can see supplies, materials, everything else falls into that other umbrella. So we really reinforce that what we can do as a team to control increases for, especially for medical insurance, really helps relieve some of that pressure on our overall budget.
So on the next slide, you'll see our medical loss ratio trends from the 2019-2020 year up until the 22-23 year. And what health insurance organizations typically like to see is approximately an 88%. And this allows them to cover their other expenses, their administrative expenses. So you'll see that for the 21-22 and 22-23 year, we have been quite a bit higher than 88%.
Here's this, on the loss trends, do you do a look back? Like, is there a 3-year look back and then possibly drop off of like high claims, like one-offs?
That I don't know, because that is all the information that we receive from our insurance broker, USI. So this, to be able to figure out how those rates are calculated, I couldn't speak to
One
that.
thing that they do provide though is, and they let us know of that 124%, what portion of that are the highest claims. There may be like 4 or 5 people that have extremely large claims, and we understand that will always be the case. It is never to encourage people not to take care of their medical needs. But I think Chris got into this a little bit, but when that medical loss ratio gets high, and the 108 was high, and then the 124 is even higher, that means that the medical insurance companies are losing money on our school district, and their response to that is to raise rates to try to balance that out. And this is something the school districts across the state are seeing. Are both the high medical loss ratios, because medical costs are going up and have gone up very rapidly over the last couple of years, but also seeing significant rate increases as a result of those high medical loss ratios. And in a minute on an upcoming slide, Chris will speak a little bit to what that looks like for next year.
Yeah, because I mean, from what I've seen is, so they'll come in and say, okay, well, here's a target you can do with your audience. Like, here's, again, changing behavior, like don't go to the emergency room, try to go to the urgent care, or, like it focuses on where those big hitters that you wouldn't necessarily know, but all of a sudden I was just curious. So they don't provide that data, they don't provide that data.
Well, they do, I just can't speak to it. I would have to go back and do some research to be able to find out that answer. But for the last 8 years now, our focus has been on wellness. And how do we promote that wellness with our staff to then have that filter down to, does that impact our rates, our renewal rates?
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to know, like, again, talking out loud, is this 124 because of the increased cost of medical or because of an action of the district? If it's just literally like things are just costing more, then there's really nothing more. You could do all the wellness in the world, but.
So I think it's going to be a combination of both.
Yeah.
Does the industry know if there's a component of deferred medicine? Over the pandemic, people say, I'm going to wait for my knee replacement because I just don't want to go to the hospital. And so back in part of 20, part of 21, people were deferring elective but necessary medicine. Is part of this, and this isn't specific to us, but the industry at large or society at large, is it a wave of some of that that's going to kind of mitigate out now that we've had a period of time, or is that a non-factor in the 108 and 124, or is that just simply unknown?
I think it's a unknown.
Okay.
I would hazard to say yes, it is, or no, it's not.
I think anecdotally it is, but we don't have any strong research to say that it definitely is. But we know that there are people who put things off during COVID, both because of the inability to get in and get things done and their own decision to wait until things had cleared up before going in.
Okay, so on this slide, you'll see the plan year And then the middle column represents what our insurance premium rate caps were for those years. And then you'll see the far right row, or I'm sorry, column, what the insurance company would have charged us if we didn't have the rate caps in place. So you'll see for last year, or for the year that we're currently in, the 23-24 year, with those medical loss ratio being so high, we had a 6.9% rate cap, and it would have been a 12.2. So then a few other noteworthy events. Those rate caps were in place from 2021 through the 23-24 year, and the rate cap ends in 24-25 with a potential 9.9% rate cap. And this is based off of if the district has 70% bonus participation. I'll get to that in a later slide here. And then we'll look at another slide that looks at anecdotal evidence that if we do not hit that 70% mark, what can we potentially expect? So on this slide, you'll see from 2014-15 year and how the insurance benefits have increased over time. So for the 2019-2020 year, this is when the district consolidated to Dean Health Insurance from Mercy and Dean. And then you'll see the HSA option was added in the 21-22 year.
I do want to point out that this slide is overall benefits. It's not specific to medical insurance. It's the increasing cost over time of our overall benefits. On the far right for 23-24, that's at 11.2 million that I spoke to earlier.
Is this adjusted for employees? Is this a like for like? So in 2014-15, we have this under 9 million. What would be the employee base count versus the 11.2?
It's not, it's just the total spend
straight up
by
spend.
school district. But our total number of employees hasn't changed drastically during that time.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, on this slide, the next few, this outlines the dental insurance changes over time. You'll see in 21-22 year, we received a negative 3% for our dental insurance, which was a slight decrease, and those rates have stayed pretty consistent. Next slide is the life insurance. And in the 22-23 year, the district made changes to the life insurance plan, and that was from a 44 cents per every $1,000 of an employee's salary to 17 cents for every $1,000 of an employee's salary. So you'll see that 61.36% decrease. Next slide. And then long-term disability as well. We provide this benefit for all of our staff, and that has stayed pretty consistent with the exception coming in this year. 0.01 of a decrease.
So at the bottom of the last two slides, this one says LTD will cost the district 75,000, and then basic life will cost. Is that the same as it is right now?
That's correct.
It's not an additional 47, and then it is. So
No,
it's
this is just that amount that we pulled
Okay.
from our budgeted amounts.
Yeah, that's our total budgeted amount for this current year. So between the dental, life, and LTD, long-term disability, it's about $650,000 in total budgeted amount for the school district for this year. So definitely not, it's a portion of that 11.2 million, but obviously not as big a portion as the medical insurance is.
Would it be safe to say the medical insurance is 10.6 or whatever the difference there is?
Josh, do you have an estimate on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you carve out the three things you just mentioned, is medical almost all the rest of it?
No, there's a few other components that come into it. So for the 23-24, our budgeted cost for health insurance for the HRA and the HSA is approximately $5,470,000. So the other components are Wisconsin retirement, FICA, Medicare. So there's a lot of other those components that make up that 11-ish million.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, and next slide. This is the benefit costs over time. So it's that previous slide that I showed you, and then you'll see a potential for the 24-25 year. If the district hits at 70% wellness participation, we can expect a 9.9% increase, and that's a yellow bar. If we miss that 70%, we can expect per USI, they're our insurance broker, approximately 15% increase. And you'll see that's the red bar on the far right side. So these are approximates. These are pretty rough guesses at this point. The next slide will talk about where we are at with our wellness participation.
So is it a $500,000 difference? I'm just trying to look at the graph, like, we're talking about $500,000?
Yeah, Chris had shared that the medical overall cost, and it varies because there's some different things that go into those medical costs, is about 5.6 million or so. A 10% increase would be $500,000-ish. So it's a significant part of our budget. If we think back to that pie graph with 22% benefits being 11.2 million, when that grows by $500,000, that's $500,000 that we don't have to spend on other things. We talk a lot about having a lot of needs in our school district where we would rather be addressing those needs, whether they're salaries for our employees, materials for our students. We'd rather be having our revenues going towards those things than paying insurance companies. So we want to make sure that we're doing whatever we can to keep those benefit costs increases. And we understand why they need to have some increases, but we want those increases on a year-to-year basis to be more manageable than this, hopefully.
Chris, the wellness clinic at the Edgerton Hospital is super convenient. Does that facility allow, can you do your wellness visit at that facility?
That is an option, that's correct.
Because one of the things, in terms of dollars, Rich, you're in head, a dollar spent here is a dollar you can't spend somewhere else. But in addition to that, the reason it costs more in the not hitting it is you avoid having diseases get out of hand, right? And you're treated more rapidly, and the consequences of not treating it are less. And so there's such an incentive. Throw out the dollar terms of it, but just the incentive of not getting more sick prior to having something diagnosed and hopefully treated successfully. So hopefully everyone gets the opportunity to just recognize the reason it costs more than scenarios people are getting more sick. And like I said, the Edgerton facility is great. It's easy to get in and such, so it's not like it's 6 months to get in or something. So hopefully people are taking advantage of that.
I think people are more and more. When it was initially there was a bit of a hesitancy because people are used to their primary care physician that they've worked with for however many years they've been with them, and it's understandable that they'd be hesitant to move away from that comfort. Over time, more and more people are using it, and then they're going back to their friends and colleagues at their schools and departments and talking about how well it's gone. So we're seeing use go up. And what you described, Dave, is exactly what we hit on last year at our benefits advisory group meetings, is that importance of those wellness visits from both a physical standpoint, that you catch things when they're small, and we all are healthier if we take advantage of those wellness opportunities, and also from a financial standpoint, both for the employee and for the school district. So USI provided a lot of data that showed that health outcomes and financial outcomes are better when employees as a whole are taking advantage of wellness visits and getting their annual physicals and things like that. And that's kind of what led us to bring to the school board and for the board to approve having that wellness incentive for our staff.
So Carly, if you can transition to the next slide. So this is the 23-24 wellness visit that would be at the Edgerton clinic that Dave referenced, or the preventative care visit that would be with a primary care physician. So this is on the left side of the screen, you'll see it's, if 70% of the district's employees with the district's health insurance complete their annual wellness visit or preventative care visit, the district and staff will receive a rate cap of 9.9 for the 24-25 health insurance rates. So if 70% is not achieved, this is where that red bar on our previous slide was, it would be 15% or more, and that's per our insurance broker, USI. And then on the right side of the screen, you'll see as of December 31st, the district was at 49% of our staff with Dean Health Insurance had received their wellness visit or their preventative care visit. And we have until the end of May to hit that 70%. And then the last paragraph in the bottom is that $200 that staff members can receive if they have their wellness visit or preventative care visit via payroll on pre-tax, or their family, if they have family health insurance, is $400 via payroll and pre-tax.
So how often do you get the updated percentages?
A month.
You get them monthly, so you don't have January numbers yet?
Not quite yet. We're still working with Dean and finalizing reports. We're asking them to, right now the issue is you have the Dean Health Insurance and you have the Edgerton Clinic. How do we marry those two? So we're working through some growing pains on that. But there's other school districts that are in the same boat that we are. Stoughton, very similar, trying to nail down those reporting requirements and making sure that Dean's providing us with comprehensive lists.
And is this the first year that you've gone through this, or do you have data from last year?
This is the first year.
Okay, because it'd be interesting to know, because again, similar to my experience, is it comes out at the end of the month from the insurance company and you do your incentives, but it'd be nice to go back even for next year to say, okay, well, how many of these incentives were paid out in February, March, April? So now I know, because people are going to do their annuals once a year. So if we had 30% that do it in those 3 months, well, then you could assume that those would be captured in the last 3 months.
And we pay out these incentives, the $200 or the $400, we paid it out in December, after we had November 30th deadline, and we're gonna pay it out again in May with a May 15th deadline. So then during this time, the HR department, the benefits advisory group members are trying to gather as many staff to get out and get their wellness checks as possible.
But you'll have the data going into next year by month, so you can know, so maybe next year you'll be able to forecast, hey, I got this many people that do the visits during this period of time. So right now you're kind of blind to say, maybe somebody's not gonna go until March because that's when their annual comes up.
Yes, with the caveat that it all depends on how many are getting their annual visits versus going to the clinic, which is, there's a quick turnaround time versus waiting 5 months to schedule your annual. So.
I got you, okay.
Depends on the individual.
How confident are we, or maybe we're not confident, if we miss the 70% benchmark, it looks like USI suggested that increase could be 15% or more. What's our exposure here? What if it's 19 or 21 or 23 or some sort of a number that just wrecks our budget?
I think what we would do once we have that information is we would look at possible plan changes to keep that increase
To bring it back
down, to make it more manageable, and then bring those through the HR committee to the board if needed. We're hopeful that we won't, and it's a statement to the medical system in general and medical insurance costs. But it's kind of sad to say that we're hopeful that it will only be a 9.9% increase.
And that question, Joe, leads into this last slide, is Rich Ross and I will be meeting with USI next week to review what those Dean Health Insurance renewal rates are going to be. So they're gonna let us know if we are in that 15% or if we're in a higher number. And then we'll be talking at an upcoming HR committee meeting on March 6th. What do those renewal rates look like? And so we will have additional conversation about that. We'll also have our rates. I'm hopeful on that March 6th to have January and February, or I should say not rates, but the enrollment or the people that have done their wellness visits for the next 2 months. and we'll have and present that to the HR committee on March 6th. And then on March 13th, we'll have a benefits advisory group that will be sharing some information out with them as well.
And the deadline to get these visits done is May?
May 31st.
So you get the data in mid-March, and if we're sitting at 64%, we can make some sort of an effort to get a few more folks in there to hit that target?
We are working on that actually right now too. We're working on communication that we'll be sharing out with all of our supervisors in the district. And then there's also some assistance that we're getting from the Edgerton Clinic as well.
It would be great to have a plan B, because my fear is if you call your normal physician tomorrow, and when can I get in, it's gonna be in June, which doesn't fix this. So what is plan B? If you're like, I'm really motivated to do this, if my physician can't see me till June, then what? I have an answer to that question.
Plan B is the Edgerton Clinic, because I've heard from staff members that they can't get in until August to get a well on with their primary care physician. You can get within 2 days at the Edgerton Clinic.
And then that conversation around what the district's response will be if we don't get to that amount is something we can talk through with the HR committee on March 6th.
Maybe a document from the Edgerton, I know you might have this on what they do. So like, I know what my primary care physician does when I go there for my annual exam. I wouldn't know what Edgerton would do. I don't know if you guys have that, but it might people's maybe get nerves at ease a little bit.
And we have that. I've actually participated in both. So I know the comparisons between them. So.
That's 20%, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, any other questions for Chris? All right, that's all.
All right, thanks, John.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move along. Another committee report will be the Tech Committee, Technology, from Mr. Ed Snow.
I'm gonna use my phone and squint as my computer's not operating here, so bear with me. On the 26th, we had our technology supervisor, Neil Lutke, held a technology committee meeting. Myself and Tracy were there in attendance. There's two agenda items that you see on board docs that you're lucky to have working. Line-wise filtering and technology updates. I'm going to ask Neil to kind of give an overview on those, but I want to call special attention to the line-wise filtering to the board. So I'm going to put this down because I can't read it and talk to you. I'll just wing it here. The technology committee or technology department is bringing a new content filter. Simple languages, it takes away the bad and make sure the good stuff gets through. Stuff we don't want kids to see stays out. Stuff we want to see comes through. That is to meet some compliance with for our E-rate funding. E-rate is actually a discount program that to be compliant, we have to filter. And we'll explain that a little bit. So this new filtering system will filter everyone at home, which will get us in compliance. It was a kind of a gray area before, but it's been mandated now. It has to be filtered at home. It also, and I think the big thing that we need to understand here, it offers some transparency into traffic for students, so we can see where they're going, what they're doing. It offers some, was it AI?
And more automated monitoring.
Yeah, it shoots somebody a message that says, hey, somebody was surfing for this. You might want to be on alert, and there's going to be communication about that going out here in the near future to our community. So I think it's really important that we all listen to this part because you may get some questions on it. Neil, I did my best to tee you up without my notes that I worked so hard on. Anything else that we should celebrate? Or are you going to take it from there?
We're good. I'll just kind of go through the new filter. The old filter that we're coming from is on-site only. So students in school buildings get filtered. And then you go home, you go off network. They're not filtered anymore. This is a cloud filter that follows the device, whether it's at Starbucks or McDonald's or home. And that's, again, and spoke to, that's the compliance piece. So we can continue to participate in federal funded programs. And then the other piece is it has automatic alerting for categories. It kind of watches where students are searching for certain things. If they hit certain categories like self-harm, or substance abuse, or maybe adult content, it will send an alert to technology, and then we might send it along to the building administrators if it's something they want to follow up on. So the alerting kind of is a big new piece that we didn't want. So we want full transparency when we go forward with this. We don't want anybody to think we're spying on them or that we're, sneaking up on you. We just want full transparency about what our new tool does with an emphasis on student safety. There have been maybe 2 or 3 incidences as we've piloted this where there comes up with a student safety concern where really that's what they're looking for. And then we follow up with school principals, phone calls from the families, and it's been an overall positive experience so far. So again, the big focus is again compliance and then student safety, student well-being is where the new tool is kind of coming from. Our pilot is involved, again, it's been a good partnership with student services and with all the school principals, kind of moving this forward, figuring out what the next step is, talking to the technology committee. We've had really productive discussions along the way, and then bring it to the board as our next kind of information step.
I got a question, or I guess it's a comment. One of the things we learned, and COVID brought this to the forefront, so it's sometimes in a household, the school device is the only one. And I know in a beneficial aspect, back in that window, that device got used for a job search or something innocuous that was certainly helpful or whatever. Is there any, I guess, negativity to if that device is used by a non-student, right? Because it's the only one in the household, et cetera. And I know we had the kids sign, appropriate use agreements, et cetera. So that, but just so that an adult using the machine wouldn't trigger an alert that would reflect poorly on the student, if you get where I'm trying to.
Yeah, I can see the risk there. I would say overall, I don't think that's a concern. Officially the student devices are for student use for school activities, but we understand that, there's some flexibility there. Really, we're not worried about people going, applying for jobs online. We're not worried about innocuous, just kind of general day-to-day use. We're worried about things that would raise a safety issue, or would raise an inappropriate content issue. So if anything falls into there is a potential for an alert to be flagged, but by and large, I wouldn't say we overblock it and super aggressive on that end. We tend to block for compliance and productivity and well-being, and then everything else is kind of fair game, as long as it's, as I referred to as the good stuff, can stay, we just want to keep the best.
Yeah, okay.
I just have a question. Do you know of other districts that are using this filtering system?
I do. We got a really good referral from Middleton Cross Plains.
Okay.
I had a conversation with Brian and Wally in their tech department. There's even like an NBC, they had a little news board on it with their safety initiative as well. You can look that up if you want, but they're using it with success.
Okay, sounds good. And are there others? I mean, did you do your homework as it relates to other options out there for filtering? Okay.
Yeah, the fact that we're an Apple district kind of limits us a little bit. GoGuardian is huge in the Chromebook world. Educan uses GoGuardian. They love it, but that's not an option for us because we don't have Chromebooks. We did try Securely last year. We did not have a great experience with it. Other districts are using it, okay, it didn't work great for us. This was a good fit based on our existing platform with the iPads and the MacBooks, with our existing firewall, and then financially it was workable as well.
And is it true that your existing firewall company was bought up by this company? So it's
Yes, it was kind of a natural transition.
So it's something you've had experience with for lots of years and
Correct.
kind of the next evolution perhaps?
Yep, an existing trusted partner, a technology vendor we've done work with for a dozen years.
Is there any search history that presents a red flag followed up instantaneously? I'm just thinking, you mentioned self-harm. I would hate to have something like that be a red flag and not get followed up for several days or a week or something. Or are these almost reacted to in real time? Maybe isn't the right word, but something akin to that.
We have been kind of mulling over that question for weeks and months, trying to figure out who is best to receive the alerts, who is best to act on the alerts, what happens after that. We kind of have a working plan, and then we've kind of been trying to live with our pilot, and now we're going to put into place a little bit more in terms of how quickly the alerts are responded to. It's best effort on our behalf here. There's an inherent delay between when something is searched for, when the alert gets triggered, when the email gets delivered. When someone in tech is able to act and say, yeah, that rises to the safety level, then it gets passed along to administration. So there's steps in the process, so there's an inherent time delay, but insofar as it depends on us, it's happening as fast as possible. But again, it's kind of a 24/7 stream of information with, 30, 50, 100 alerts a day sometimes. So that requires time, attention, moderation, discretion. So we're doing the best we can for the sake of our students, but acknowledging that we're human and we need sleep.
That was gonna be my question, is how much burden are we placing on you and your staff? Because now we're looking at theoretically more alerts if it's at home. Is it gonna become burdensome where you can't keep up or become ineffective? I don't know if you know the answer to that, I'm sort of opining
I
here.
think just, one thing before Neil can get into the details on that is that part of our pilot is to get an idea of how many alerts are coming through, and of those alerts, how many of them are innocuous. And Neil can maybe give an example or two. He shared some examples at the committee meeting of things that have come up that as soon as you look at them, well, you can know right away, this doesn't mean anything. And then we've made some decisions around what's vital to respond to as soon as we have that information versus what can wait. If something comes in on a Saturday night at 7 p.m., what can wait until Monday? And an example of that is if a student is accessing adult content, we want to make sure that their parents are alert to that the school is alert to it, but we don't feel like we need people to make that call in the middle of the night on a Saturday, that's something that can be addressed on a Monday. Whereas if it's a potential harm to a student, to himself or to others, that becomes a more immediate issue. So, Neil, do you have a couple, I won't put you on the spot, but do you have an example or two of some false?
Sure.
items that come through?
Plenty that will make you watch, so I'll try to keep it PG.
Thank you.
I think the quickest example that comes to mind is the platform is maturing, the AI will get better, but right now it doesn't know the difference between To Kill a Mockingbird and I want to something else. It flags that keyword and it sends the alert and it says human user. It's not necessarily context aware, so there's a lot of information that comes in. Someone was looking up nitrous oxide for the Fast and the Furious movies. It comes up as a substance abuse issue because it can be abused. So a lot of information like that is coming in. You can say, well, this is fine. I know that kid, I know the project, or I know what they're learning in health classes.
So we talked a lot about this, because again, my other concern when we talked about this committee was the burden we're putting on our employees, because they're Saturday, Sunday, this is time and night, and what is the responsibility? Ross talked about, from an insurance respect and a, financial, but it makes me chuckle, and hopefully it's also going to get trickled through once it gets published, like, not Big Brother, but yeah, they're kind of looking, and so my son is in health right now, and he's like, Mom, I had to look this up, and I was like, God, I hope it alerts me. So I'm hoping and hopeful that it will, once it gets more out there, and we talked a lot about this in the community, was, what kind of tamp down as it learns more, and especially when it comes to possibly the adult content side of it, like, you might have been able to sneak through before, but now because of the home thing, like it's under the guidance, and not to put any more work onto the folks that are doing this, but we appreciate the work that you put into that. So thank you very much.
Yes, I'd like to piggyback off that. First of all, I think it's something that's really important to our district, and I'm glad we're doing it. But perhaps Rich or Ross or somebody could speak to the fact. I think it brings on a natural question which David was driving at. What happens if the really bad thing comes at 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning and nobody reads the email until 7 o'clock on Sunday morning? And we miss an opportunity to help somebody. Can we talk about obligation? We've talked a little bit about that, and let everybody kind of understand that piece.
Sure. I'll speak briefly to from an insurance perspective and from a people perspective. So far, as we've been talking with our insurance carrier, our liability exposure to knowledge of an event that could be in either in process of occurring or imminent is that negligence is the only determining factor for liability exposure. Certainly, if we get an actionable piece of information at 2 a.m. in the morning, first of all, we're not checking we need to. But if we were, and we saw something, yes, that would warrant a call, or we would reach out to a principal, possibly Rich or myself, to figure out, do we need a wellness check? And at least what can we do in this circumstance now that we know better? But to your point, if we woke up the next morning and saw it for the first time, we would have the same response. It is actionable as soon as we're aware of it. But as we roll out this action plan, our communication plan, my goal would be that the next reasonable opportunity for us to address something is when we first know about it. So I don't want to place the expectation that we need to monitor email hours of the night. I mean, I know we don't feel that way nowadays, but it doesn't mean we should be. From a legal perspective, as more districts adopt this, mentioned that one of the districts are doing this, we had this securely in Madison when I was up there last couple of years. And it was a growing pain there too, because our response plan had to discuss what would happen for low incidents that would creep up on Monday morning, and what would we do on nights and weekends if we had an Black Friday event. Similar idea. The only legal implication is if we do nothing. If we were found to be negligent, that we sat on a red email for multiple days at a time and did nothing and passed on, then we couldn't be. But even in those situations, if we had a response or we addressed it all, we would be covered through our errors and omissions carrier, so that we would not be actively trying to be negligent in that respect.
I think it's also important that they've been beta testing this or trial testing it, so they're working out that response flow as well as the technology and the AI. And maybe someday it's not a tech department, it's the first people to read the email, maybe somewhere else, but you guys are building that plane in the air as you go. I think that's super important. You know, one more question you can share with the board is what is actually read? Because I even misinterpreted that. It's internet traffic and not email.
Yeah, there are some security and student safety products that do everything. They're glorified keyloggers. This is not that. It's not watching your emails, it's not watching your Google Drive. This is watching web traffic. So if you open up Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Edge on your MacBook, on your iPad, you visit a website, you do a search on Google, Yahoo, Bing, those search terms, those website visits are logged and then alerted. So our goal, of course, coming from a baseline of compliance with a new tool that helps us with student safety, student well-being, our goal is to, number one, block the attempt. If you try to go there, it shouldn't let you. If it does let you do something wrong, you need to come see tech anyway. It shouldn't let you go there. Number two, if there's something serious that falls into one of those few categories, we want the alert, we want to know. And then again, like Tracy said, we don't want to be Big Brother. We want to keep an eye. We have this tool, we have this visibility. We can't just go blah blah blah. We got to do something with it. And so that's kind of our action plan. Is we're going to use these alerts and these emails to promote student safety, student well-being, and to initiate some conversations about what your device is and isn't for.
Does it go without saying that we monitor ours and staff
Yes.
devices too?
It does.
I assumed as much, but
So I just want to reiterate that it's not monitoring student emails. So if there's a bullying, if you hear like there's a bullying thing going on between emails, why isn't that being red flagged? It's not doing that. It's strictly what you're searching for on the web. And there are products that are very popular that do the other part that I just mentioned. We're not doing that.
And
Russ?
Go ahead.
Russ, can you just address again prior federal funding? That this is obviously a compliance issue, right? So have we, as a district, received prior funding, and what's at risk? Obviously, I guess is where I'm going financially.
This is in our current technology budget, so this is of course an existing filtering product. So we're not getting direct federal funding for this, but something we qualify for using.
Yeah, do you want to, do you understand what she's asking?
Yeah. So in terms of the benefit that we get, because we're complying with access funding,
Yes.
it's tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace wireless access points, switches. You get half off our internet connection. Our bandwidth is super important. Even this week, we're living on half of our internet because half down because of the storms in Evansville. So the E-rate kind of umbrella statement is anything that delivers internet to students. So the infrastructure, the fiber optic network inside the buildings, between the buildings, all that is readable. And then the percentage is roughly better than 50-60%, something like that for several years. So I mean, easily hundreds of thousands of dollars over 10 years.
Tim, was part of your question around have we lost out on some of that funding by
Or-
not
or
having this
will
in
we?
place in the
Yeah.
past?
Will we, if obviously
If
again,
we don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's-
We would be eligible.
We didn't do.
Yep.
We're not current.
Yeah, it's been a kind of working process for the oversight and the rules to kind of clarify what it is we're supposed to filter. Is it the device, is it the network connection? It's very clear now, so we're moving forward.
And just to your point, it's about $173 per student, a 5-year cycle. So $250,000 every 5 years, or roughly. So it's a discount program, it's not funding. So our internet bill is 50% off, which is, I don't know, what's our internet bill? $50 a month now, $35, $100.
30, 40 grand a year, probably.
It's half price.
Any other questions or thoughts from board members on line-wise? We had one other agenda item under the tech committee.
You gonna go ahead on the
Yes.
real quick?
Absolutely. Just wanted to let you know of some infrastructure projects that are coming up here soon. We're getting ready to replace some 8 or 10-year-old cameras, some security cameras with higher resolution, better coverage, and then the back-end storage and servers that those cameras store their footage on, so we can retrieve and review, as well as our main servers that run our Windows infrastructure, our testing infrastructure, board controllers, all that kind of stuff. And then lastly, a replacement firewall from the school wall that we're using. We don't have it now, it's from about 2016, so it's not been modernized, and so we need to get a modern platform that's going to give us much better security, reliability, bandwidth, all kinds of things there. So we had across those 4 projects, we had 7 different vendors bidding on some or all of them. Very competitive process, very productive, and Melissa's favorite part is we are doing on time and we're budget friendly.
Any other questions for the technology committee? Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Ed, and Ross, and Neil. All right, we will roll on to new business. Item A is our second Friday in January student count report. A couple of docs that they'll share with us. Rich, you gonna speak to this one?
Yes, every year across the state of Wisconsin, school districts do a third Friday in September count and then a second Friday in January count. This year, the second Friday in January was our big snow across the southern part of the state. So us and a number of districts across the state weren't in session, and DPI sent out a note to the school districts that you could use the day before, the Thursday before, or you could choose to go into the following week. And we chose to use the Thursday before in this situation. And on the board, you can see the comparison by school and grade level between the September and the January count. Just a couple things that I want to highlight there. On the far right column is the total adjusted head count. That's what the state uses for revenue purposes. We increased by 1, so from 3,403 up to 3,404 from September to January. And the total in the buildings are the number of students. When it saw a decrease of 8 students from 3,447 to 3,439, and that decrease was across different grade levels in different schools. Some grade levels saw increases, some saw slight increases, some saw slight decreases. There weren't substantial increases or decreases at any of our schools or grade levels, but I want to thank all of our admin assistants at each of our schools and Carly and Dean Olson, who work diligently to compile this and get it turned into the state.
You have to go and like count people on cameras and stuff. Like, how did you do this after the fact? Like, I'm just like, great job, but how do you do that?
Oh, it's a lot of different reports that we run, and then we get different reports from every school, and then Dina does the ins and outs for us, and we just compile everything. So
The reports are from our student management system from Skyward.
Okay.
So we get those reports, but a lot of the work is then cross-checking the ins and outs, the students that have moved in and the students that have left over the course of the year.
Because like doing it after the fact, but to me, it's like, oh, we're gonna go back and do it now. Well, I think it's great.
Alrighty, I'm sorry, let me catch up to the agenda here. Any questions on the counts? All right, thank you, Rich. B, as Mr. Bellhorn is making his way up, we have discussion and possible action on Milton High School extended field trip requests. Where are they going?
Well, we're going all over right now. So in your packet, you'll see the next round of extended trip request. Again, extended trip defines anything that's going overnight. Stacy Skemp is going to be taking a few students in conjunction with several other FFA chapters to do judging in Ireland and Scotland. That's pretty cool. Social studies, actually, the trip to Central Europe and the Holocaust, Germany and Poland, a trip that they had wanted to plan several years ago. That is going to be in the hopper for a year from now. And then the various conferences for state competitions and for ice fishing. We have jazz band competition they're going to be going to. The Substance Prevention Society and GSA has a leadership conference that they're wishing to attend. And then we threw History Club for next year, because I caught him up in the hallway and said, let's get this on the agenda now. So.
I was gonna ask you that question, because this one seems awfully far for, okay, so this won't come before us again?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So like I've said before, the best way to make sure that we have another trip is to actually have this presentation. Tomorrow I'll be asked about the trip that they want to take us overnight. So even though I asked for all the trips for the rest of the year, but we try to forecast with them.
I would just add, and only because I have the insight there, that first one that the FFA kids are taking is very, very exciting for them, and they've actually earned their way to that.
Thank you.
It's a state and national competition that they've succeeded at, to the level that they've been invited or are eligible to go to an international competition. So very, very exciting for those
We
kids.
had 3 students do that probably about 4 or 5 years ago now.
3, maybe, not so long.
3 years. Yeah, it was, you're right. It was after
Yeah,
COVID.
so
But yeah, a trip of a lifetime.
Do
exactly.
you know where in Ireland they're going?
Not exactly,
I don't know.
I'm just curious.
but they've earned it, is basically what I wanted to share, so.
I would move to approve, no, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
I was just gonna add one thing, if I could. I could wait until after the motion too, but Joe starts every one of our meetings with our mission and our vision statement, and a big part of that are opportunities for all. And our opportunities don't just take place in the classrooms. Those chances for students to learn and to see the world are an important part of what we do as a school district. So both for our academic groups and for our clubs, these are great opportunities for our students to gain some firsthand knowledge outside the classroom.
Thank you. I'll also add too that there's also kudos to the staff that wish to plan these. These are often things that they choose to do above and beyond. Might be part of some of their coaching or their advising. It is things that they choose to look for those opportunities to do. And the planning with all these, especially the international travel, we always go with companies that have the insurance and have the reputation. We review those different groups before, especially for international trips, but it is quite the opportunity for these things.
Now, for staff members, some might look at this and say, oh my goodness, what a great opportunity for the staff member. They get to travel to so-and-so, but we need to remember that they're traveling to so-and-so with a group of 20 kids, and there's a lot of responsibility that goes with that, both during the trip, but a lot of planning time that goes with it too. So we're very thankful for our teachers and advisors who organize and chaperone these trips for our students.
Any other questions on the field trips?
I would move to approve the Milton High School extended field trip request as presented.
I will second that.
Thank you. That is David's motion, seconded by Tracy. Questions on those or the motion? I hear none. All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you very much. That clearly passes. Mr. Billhorn will stay at the podium as I transition to the next agenda item, which I'll have to get the C. I'm sorry, I was searching for the number here. This is discussion and possible action on the naming of the Milton High School Stadium. And Mr. Billhorn is the author or co-author at least of the memo that's included in board docs. So it gives the background and some of the details, but I will let Mr. Billhorn speak to the content.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you do have a memo in board docs. I have the pleasure of, we don't do this very often. And so over the years, and I will say probably over the last 10 years, I've been approached by, at times, we really need to name the stadium after Jerry Schlum. Or we really, have we ever considered that? And that is something that the district has done on several occasions, but it doesn't happen very often. That has picked up some speed, and after consideration, really meeting with various groups within the high school and athletic department to realize that this is, and I believe, and as does Just Feedback, a good thing to do. So Jerry Schlem started in 1970 at Milton High School. He coached it until 2003. The accolades are in the memo there. Not only is he one of the top winningest coaches in Wisconsin history. He's been inducted into 5 separate coaching Hall of Fames, Hall of Fames from his time at Platteville, Wisconsin Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame, Milton Area Athletic Hall of Fame. He's in Canton, Ohio, for the Semi-Pro Football Hall of Fame. People don't realize that he also coached Semi-Pro football to the point where he was inducted into that Hall of Fame. And they're also National Coaches Association Hall of Fame. So, the accolades are there. Obviously, the 2 state championships, but beyond the winning and beyond that, we looked at what is in the name. We have Carl Anderson Field. I will note that the field will not change. I did a lot of reading about who Carl Anderson was and why did we name the field after Carl Anderson. Carl Anderson was the coach at Milton High School. When I say the coach, he was the coach for all the athletics during this time, in the 1930s and 40s into the 50s and even into the 60s. In many ways, Jerry Shum represents that too. So Jerry Shum, on top of coaching thousands of athletes, he also was a model for many of our staff and our coaches as well too. I will speak, but personally, as a member of Jerry's staff, but he not only coached kids, he coached other adults to love being part of something special in Milton High School. And whether that was coaching football, which was his main sport, but whether it was he at one point coached wrestling, which I found hard to believe, but Jerry actually did coach wrestling at one point in time. He was a basketball coach, he was a baseball coach, but he just loved bringing that part of what the high school experience is. And really taught a lot of leadership skills, not only to the athletes, but also to the adults along the way. There's not a coach, most of the coaches for a whole generation were influenced by Jerry and their career choice with teaching and coaching because Jerry was essentially the mentor to the entire school. I know some of the alumni that are on the board, they might have played for Jerry or knew Jerry as their health and finance teacher, but certainly, for the close to 35 years that he was our head coach and a teacher at the high school, he certainly shaped a lot of what that building said. And I believe warranted as we named the stadium for naming the stadium. Again, it would be Carl Anderson Field at Jerry Shum Stadium is what the proposal is. Timing now, because if the board chooses to do this, because Jerry is still with us, I spoke with the family. They are very honored with the consideration of this. I wanted to always bring this forward. But if there is any future projects with the stadium, having that along with it's independent of what happens with the stadium itself, but with any new infrastructure that is built or signage, we come into play with that as well.
So I just want to make a quick comment as a transplant. So I've only been here for 14 years, so I didn't have the honor.
Only 14, yeah.
Only 14. So again, do not know who Carl F. Anderson was or the legacy, like you said. So one request or recommendation is, as we move forward, can we put something outside to let folks know why we have these names? So it might be on the wall of honor, but if you don't go into the high school and know where that is, you won't read that. So for someone like myself, I'll go to a football game, even if the new, whatever they're walking through, have one on each side to recognize, here's why we're doing it, and have someone write that. That would just be my only request to really understand.
You see outside the town leader, the leader family pool, that there is the very nice summary of time. I think that's a strong suggestion.
I also, over the weekend, had to Google Carl F. Anderson. I know it's been there forever, but I don't know the exact history. One of the things that I like about this is Jerry's still with us. It seems a shame to have to wait for someone to pass away before we honor them, when it would be so much more meaningful to do so when they're still with us. And Jerry does a lot of things, including driver's ed. My daughter had Jerry for driver's ed.
I didn't bring up that one yet.
And so when I saw this come on the agenda, like I said, the first thing I thought is, and I don't mean we as a school district, I mean we as a society should be better at honoring people when they're with us, as opposed to waiting for them to be gone. And so I think this is an excellent idea. It's a long time coming. I'd love to make a motion, but I don't want to cut anyone off, so I'm not going to, but I think this is a great idea.
I'd like to just throw my 2 cents in too. And I'm gonna admit, quite honestly, I'm biased. I did play for Coach Slim. I did coach with Coach Slim. He taught me and my daughter driver's ed. So he's been,
You're not biased.
yeah, he's been around for a while. But as a coach, I'm speaking with my coach hat on here. Winning and losing is great, and Jerry has the accolades, and he's done that to the 10th power. He is a great winner and loser, but he's also a great representation of a human being. And I think naming this after him sets a great precedent for our district by saying, this is what you can do, this is how you can make an impact in your life, and you can make a difference in the community. And he made a difference in this community. He could have gone a lot of places. He coached in Europe for years. So for me, and I'm again biased, and I know him as a person, he's a great person. I think this is the right thing to do at the right time, much in the same way we honor Tom Leader. So I'm very much in favor, and we'll vote in favor of it. Coach Slim's a good guy.
Yeah, I don't need to weigh in. I've been wildly enthusiastic about this since it was mentioned several years ago, so a long time coming.
Well,
Attaboy.
thank you. I will move to approve the naming of the high school stadium to Jerry Schlem Stadium, retaining the current name of the field as Carl F. Anderson Athletic Field.
I'd be honored to second.
And that's Dave's motion, seconded by Ed, as you just heard me mention, to very enthusiastically name our high school stadium Jerry Schlem Stadium. Questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Emphatically passed.
Thank you, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. All right, Ms. Musgrove, Julie is making her way up. D is 2024-2025 educational options, and she's going to outline those. This is a very cursory role of business for us, and she'll explain why we have to and what we have to do. So go ahead, Julie.
So state statute says that we need to annually provide and publish the educational options that is going to be for our upcoming school year. So this document lays it out. It's really just the formality of making sure that we are sharing with our families and the community of the educational options that we provide as a district. So we did previously have Servant Leaders Christian Academy, but they have closed right before the new year. So essentially some of those scholars ended up registering to come to our within our schools. So the private school is really just the Rock Prairie Montessori School for this upcoming school year. Are there any other particular questions?
No, this is not actionable. This is just FYI kind of.
Correct.
She's bringing this to us once a year, and
That's the question I had.
No, there's nothing we have to do, but this is to keep us aware and.
And based on the state statute, the responsibility of the school board is to publish it so that our community and our families are aware of the options, the educational options for the upcoming school year.
Julie, can you share how it's published?
So it's on our district website. So if you go to families on our district website, it actually has a tab that says educational options. And so then that gets uploaded annually of the options that are going to be for the upcoming year. So some districts wait, and essentially the tradition of Milton is we've always done it at this time of the year.
Of course, the last bullet point on it is there's a home education option, but we want to encourage that. Any questions for Julie? Very good. Thank you for that update. All right, all that's left here is miscellaneous. A is our staffing report. It's included in board docs.
I would move to approve the staffing report as presented.
I'll second that.
Dave's motion is seconded by Jennifer to approve the staffing report as you see it. Questions on it? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That clearly passes. Gifts and donations.
I would move to approve the gifts and donations with gratitude.
Second.
Thank you. Dave's motion is seconded by Tracy to approve the gifts and donations to the district with our gratitude. Questions? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Rich, meeting updates. Mitch, Rich, whatever.
Our next regularly scheduled school board meeting is 2 weeks from tonight, on Monday, February 26th. And just a preview, in March, we have just the one school board meeting because we have spring break at the end of the month. So in March, our only school board meeting is March 11th. We have a finance committee meeting scheduled for Wednesday, February 21st, is next week Wednesday. That's at 2:30 p.m. in the first floor conference room.
Sorry, which committee was that again?
That was finance.
Wednesday, the 21st.
Finance, Wednesday, the 21st at 2:30. And we have an HR committee meeting scheduled for Wednesday, March 6th at 3 p.m. That's also in the first floor conference room. And it's not a board or committee meeting, but the end of this week, I'll be attending the National Superintendent's Convention that runs from February 14th, which is Wednesday, through Saturday, the 17th. Report back on the sessions from that. What's that? San Diego.
Oh.
It's never recurred.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not an Anchorage this year, like.
All right, any questions on the meeting dates? All righty, very good. And next, we have an executive session scheduled, and I'll go over the language that we need to consider and get a motion, and we are not coming back to open. So I would entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985 sub 1 sub C and Statute 19.82 sub 1, which is considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and we are talking about the superintendent goals.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Tracy's motion is seconded by Dave. Roll call. Ed?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Joe is yes. Tracy?
Yes.
And Dave? Yes. That is clearly passed. Thank you all for joining us. See you down the road.